I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. This is going to be so much fun. We're going back a little memories from the road, literally from the road. We've got Jerry Fitzpatrick, bus driver. He was on with Barney, but Aerosmith, Dave Matthews. We can go on and on and on, and we will talk about it. And he's also got a fascinating book that we're going to talk about as well. Jerry, how are you? It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you today, Carey. Wow.
I know.
It's a long time. It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
It is, because we did Barney's Big Surprise, which would have, I know it went out in 1996 at the beginning. And I think you were probably somewhere right there near the beginning, if not the beginning.
Yes, I think I was on one of the first tours, one of the first legs that went out when the Barney show had just come together and it was hitting the road for the first time.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun because I know, and I think it's going to be fascinating for people watching this because Barney, but you've also Aerosmith and Dave Matthews, and I know a lot of the crew and you as well have done this. So the experiences are going to be so interesting.
It was great to, on the Barney tour, for instance, just what you're saying, a lot of the folks in the industry work for different entertainment acts. And, so a lot of the folks like electricians and lighting guys and sound guys, they all interact on tours, and the same goes for drivers. As one tour finishes up and says, thank you, good night, then another one's going, hello, Baltimore, and starting a tour. And so a lot of the folks in the industry interact between the tours, and you do your job. In my case, I'm a driver, but an electrician's needed on every tour. So sometimes I work with the same electricians one tour to the next. So,
which I think that's right. That we talk about being on the road, and it becomes a family. I mean, you end up working with people. Some of the people from that tour, I'm still so many good friends from those years. You become so tight from working the way that we were working.
And many times when you work with them and live with them in a closed-in environment, eat with them on a daily basis, on your days off, fight with them at the bars.
Right.
You do have some great memories, and then sometimes you get split up. You may go to another tour and not see that person for 2 or 3 years, and then when you come back and get a chance to work with them again, it's just like old times. And you start talking to them just like it was yesterday that you just said, hey, I'll see you tomorrow.
Which is what this feels like, seeing you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like yesterday.
It's a wonderful feeling.
It really is. I don't know if you know this, but when that Barney tour first started out, we flew on planes. So we went.
Did not realize that.
We went city to city on planes for I want to say the first 2 months.
Okay.
And I will speak for myself personally. I can't tell you how wonderful it was to finally have a bus, because we had 50 people on that tour. We had children, and so to go through security, to get up early in the morning to take a bus to the airport, you had to be there hours before, and security, and then get on a plane with 50 people, and then get to the city, and then get another bus. It was a half day, if not a full day. And
it's a job and a job.
Yes. And I remember when they were talking about getting buses, a lot of the cast members didn't know what kind of buses we were getting, because in the industry, when it comes to theater tours, it's a bus, and it's like a Greyhound bus, basically. And that's not the kind of
Yes.
buses that you drive and the kind of bus that we have. So I'd love for you to kind of explain about that. The bus.
More comforts of home on
Yes.
our type of buses, on the entertainment buses. The bus manufacturer actually designs the coach to ride differently, and then they put interiors in them where you can sleep, very similar to a railroad car, on a shelf. Some folks refer to it as sleeping on a shelf. But there's carpet, there's a bathroom, there's your own private bathroom, there's a galley area where you can prepare snacks and food. There's video games to occupy the time and the hours the road's going along. So it's a lot, and satellite. So you're connected to 250 plus channels as you just travel down the road. So all the comforts of home, with being shared by a dozen people. Whereas of course, one of the charter buses, you're looking at 3 dozen people, 2, 3, 4 dozen people. So it's a big difference, and then to be able to wake up where you're going to work at that day, and then walking out of your little mobile apartment and going to work, and then coming back home at the end of the day into your mobile apartment, is very convenient versus the things you described: waking up early, fighting the traffic, dealing with the airport security, those things. So it's a lot more convenient, and economically, I think it's more, the price that you have to offset of all the cost of the transfers and the hotels and so on and so forth, you can put it all into one big package in a bus and save a lot of money.
Absolutely, because not even going to the airport, but after each show, with Barney, we were probably doing 7 shows a week. So after each show, you had to wait for a shuttle to take you back to the hotel. And
yes,
if you weren't the first one on the shuttle, then you had to wait until that went to the hotel and back. It was there's already a lot of stress on the road, and then to add all of those things, the comfort, the convenience, and having a professional driver this is what you do.
Yes, sir.
Makes a huge difference.
It's an honor. It's an honor when folks come up in the morning and say that I slept well. For me to be able to hopefully keep them safe through the night and make them feel that way enough that they can get a solid night's sleep, because the folks working, some of our crew guys on our Barney tour, were going in at 6 a.m. in the morning and working 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, maybe get an hour off, and then back to work again until midnight, 10, 11 o'clock, midnight. And then they're getting in the bus that's moving all night long. And then we're getting up and they're doing the same thing. Everyone's working dozen hours a day when you're in a touring situation. Everyone's utilized the best they can be, in all departments. So that means working. That means a limited amount of people, and those people putting in double time. So it's an honor for me to work with folks so dedicated to the entertaining folks and making folks, being a part of something that's making folks smile. And then it's an honor to be able for folks to come up and say, "Hey, I slept well last night. See you tonight when we go to the next town." It's wonderful. I enjoy that. It's what makes me thrive. So.
Well, and I don't know if you had to do with us, but we would also do, well, you probably with some of these, you do those morning appearances as well to promote the show. So whether it's Good Morning Milwaukee or Good Morning Chicago, a lot of those were at 5 a.m. So that once again, being able to go to your bus instead of a shuttle is a huge difference.
Sure it is. And being able to get dressed in your own area, comfort area. Sure. It's a lot of work by everyone, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the aspect, and I enjoy seeing how those shows are taped, the morning shows, and so on and so forth. It's always it was fun. So a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
What was it like being, because here you're doing these huge rock shows these days,
Mm-hmm.
but what was it like? Because we were like rock shows, we were just for kids, but we still had these huge audiences that came. What was that experience like for you?
It's unique to see the shows. A lot of folks the folks coming to the show, of course, in a rock show are older. And one of the things I noticed in comparison, for instance, was the scream. At the moment that an entertainer walks on stage, no matter who it is, the crowd erupts in a roar and yells and screams. And so when you have bands like Queensryche and so on and so forth, Aerosmith coming on stage, the older generation, the older folks roar is a little different than Barney's crowd was mainly 3 to 5 to a little older, and so that's that level of a screech at that moment when the lights went down and the kids lit up. I mean, it was just deafening. It was such, I don't know what decibel it was ringing in at, but it was one of the highest ones. The kids just screaming. So, but it's the look on everyone's face, no matter how old they are. That's one of the rewards of this business, is people are in awe of Barney as much as they are the rock star, and it's neat to see that sort of thing come out in people, and it's such a good thing, to when people are happy, I guess, for me.
Well, yeah, I think that, I thought that was an interesting part. We've had several of the crew members on this show, and I think a lot of them came from the Rolling Stones or AC/DC or something like that. And Barney was the first kid show that they'd ever worked on. Yes. And it's in a different emotion, because you see how real that purple dinosaur was to those kids, and it can get a little emotional, which I don't think, some of you are all used to seeing, these kids crying, and we had a lot of kids and special needs and wheelchairs and things of that nature.
Yes.
It was pretty amazing. What was that experience like for you?
It's always, sometimes there were trips with Barney and other entertainers as well. A lot of times folks don't see that aspect where they make a side trip to a children's hospital, and just what you're talking about, they, that moment of, in their misery, they light up and become so, I don't even know the word. I mean, it's very touching in your heart to see a child struggling to be lifted up if only for a moment. And it's very special to see it and be a part of it. And with Barney and with others, I've been able to witness it many times, and it's it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, that's for sure. You just want happiness for all children, and in Barney's case, the happiness he brings, you can see it right there in front of it. So it was wonderful to be a part of that. So grateful, very grateful for that. But that's kind of where I'm at with it, I guess. I'm very happy to have been a part of that. So.
What got you into this line of work?
When I was a young man, I played in a bar band, and I played drums in a bar band, and I was the only guy without a job. The other guys were responsible people, and so I was the one stuck moving the gear into the bar and out of the bar at night, in the afternoons and things like that. I was the roadie of the band, so to speak, and it just eventually evolved into that. I worked. I started working with a company that set up shows, and I figured out driving was the easiest part to still witness the world around you. A lot of the guys, in a perfect example in the Barney tour, once again, they load in early in the morning, and those guys are in an arena all day long.
Right.
and they don't see the outside world. They see the crowd come in, they perform, help the crowd perform, they lock it all up, they get in the bus, they ride to the next town. And as a driver, you do get a little freedom to witness the town, witness the area you're in, sometimes rub elbows with the locals, so to speak, find the best restaurant in town, or, you know, those kind of things. So driving was a way to do that without, I did some, in the beginning, I did some of the other roadie work, worked on a lighting crew, and also stack speakers back in the day on a sound crew. But eventually, the driving became more of a way of life for me, anyway. So, and I love to travel. I love to see America. It's a wonderful country, and we're how different we are, and yet how we're all the same. It's a wonderful experience, and as a driver, I'm able to experience all of it.
What was it, the difference? You know, well, I mentioned earlier that the Barney tour, we would sit in a city sometimes for a full week. Sometimes we'd have split weeks. Sometimes we do full week. Compared to, you know, some of these cities, some of these tours you're doing, you're just going city to city to city to city. Did you like the part of sitting in a city for a week or a few days?
You know, of course, it depended on the city a lot, but it's wonderful to spend a week in Philadelphia, and we're a city so full of history, American history, and to be able to have time to go see it, you know, those kind of things. To travel to St. Louis and see the Arch and see some things in around St. Louis, and go to the beach in California. It's always wonderful to be in a town for a few days, but it's not as profitable. Let me say that. When you're moving, you're spending money, and you know, when you're setting up. So you have to weigh the two. But you work real hard for a few weeks, and then you take a few days and sit down and you go enjoy the sights, and then work real hard for a few more weeks. So. You know.
And that's kind of how you replenish?
Sure, of course. So hope for a lot of warm weather. Hope for warm weather on off days. That and some golf. You want to play some golf. So
I remember playing some golf out on the road, and it was so much fun. I think, as you'd mentioned earlier, we work so hard. Every one of us works so hard, and everyone's job is so important, whatever it may be. But just going out, like, for example, playing golf and just goofing around, I think was such a nice break.
With freedom, yeah. Not up against the clock, not racing the clock. As our business is pretty much racing the clock. So,
right, and that's important to say that the show goes on. Yeah, whatever it may be, there's a show and it's happening. Whatever is happening, it's going on.
Can't imagine disappointing those children or even the adults on a show not starting on time, or they're not getting their money's worth.
I remember being out on the road, and there are nights where you can't sleep, and I would sit up and talk to the bus driver. And we were talking before we started this. I know you talked with Barry Pearl, one of my favorite people. One of my favorite people.
You set up a few nights with me, and as we traveled along. So sure.
It's an interesting aspect, because there's nights where I just couldn't sleep for whatever reason. You know, you're so much adrenaline, so much going on. Mm-hmm. And I remember having some of the best conversations, sitting in the middle of the night, hearing stories.
Sure. The lighting guy's too busy to talk to you when he's doing his job. But as a driver, it's pretty mellow enough. As long as we're on an open road, we're not down in some rush hour traffic pattern. Right. But on the open road, sure, and you can it's a great place to reminisce, think about good times.
Well, and I remember stopping a few times too. Like, you guys were great. I remember getting to see the Northern Lights at some point. I remember some of those experiences because you've seen so much of America. It's got to be amazing. You know all the back roads, you know all the spots, but I remember you all showing us some of these things that I would have never have had the chance to see.
I'm over 2.5 million miles of driving between all in circles in America and in Canada. I've traveled on, if you open a Rand McNally map, all the interstates are blue, and I've traveled on every one of those blue roads. I've traveled on every one of the green roads that you'll see on the map. And I've traveled on more than half of the red roads of the main state highways. I've been to a town in America with a population. I've been to every town in America, I believe, with a population of 5,000 people or more.
Wow.
So I've covered America pretty good. Like I said, over 2.5 million miles of driving. But I'm not the only one. You know, you guys had there are lots of guys, I don't want to say in my age group, but there are a lot of guys that have an equal amount of miles and are safe drivers and well known in the industry. And a lot of people request them, want that type of driver. So, I love sharing when I make a discovery, be it a museum or on the side of the road, a monument or something. I mean, I'm always love to share it. Did you see this? The Cadillacs in the ground out in West Texas, for instance. Have you seen that? I've seen it a million times, and every time I go by and I've got somebody in the bus, I go, look, if it's daylight. So I love showing off America. We're very blessed here. So
we are.
It's an honor to hear you say that.
I think it's interesting that you say that with some of the strife and some of the things going on in America right now. I think it's so. I think we lose track of that sometimes. How we've had the ability to see how beautiful this country is. And how beautiful the people are. They come to our shows, whether it's Barney or Dave Matthews, and you meet so many wonderful people. I've met so many wonderful people across this country, and I know you have met so many amazing people.
Yes, who have come from around the world. I was on a tour a few years ago of a lady named Sarah Brightman.
Yeah.
And Sarah was the singer from Phantom of the Opera, original singer of Phantom of the Opera. And so she toured America and most of her folks on her tour were all European folks. And so we drove in and out of America and Canada, back and forth across the border a bunch of times, going to towns, Saskatoon and Calgary and Billings, Montana, in the middle of winter. And but showing those folks who had never been to America before, being able to show America off to folks like that it's a wonderful feeling for me. I enjoyed doing that, and you make a lot of friends. I hope to go to their country someday and see what they have to offer.
Well, you're now obviously because of COVID, you're not on the road currently,
right.
But you guys, because you're with Dave Matthews right now for the last how many years?
I've been employed with Dave Matthews Band for 18 years. This is my 18th year.
Wow.
But I still drive. I'm also a freelance operator where I go out with for an artist, someone who knows me, such as yourself, someone in higher power that I've met through the years, and make call and check our schedules because they trust me, or they they call me, or they call their favorite bus driver and look for those guys. Once you ride with someone for a while, you start to feel comfortable there, and it's a tough business to find someone that you can actually work all 12 hours a day and then go to sleep at night, and get up and do it again. So I don't know. I'm just grateful to be here. I don't know.
It sounds it's got to be. I'm kind of curious here how you're going from Dave Matthews, and I know we talked about Courtney Love and some of these, and then Sarah Brightman, and then Barney. That's got to be the fun part of it, that you're all over the place when it comes to these different artists that you're working with.
It gives you a unique view of the people coming to the show, the people coming to the Sarah Brightman show versus the Barney show versus the Courtney Love show. But they all have a thing in common. They're wanting to be entertained by who they think is their favorite person. And they all have this glow in their eyes when they, when this is what we were talking about a moment ago. That moment, Barney, when the lights went down, the crowd yelled a little bit. But that moment, Barney jumped out from behind that house. The noise was deafening. And it's so, it just feels so good for someone to feel so good. They scream, In the same way with Courtney Love fans, there she is, whoa, So, but many of the, as we were talking earlier, many of the same acts behind the scenes have many of the same people working those, and that's where the camaraderie of people and the just like a man getting up and going to work at a factory every day with a dozen people he works with, and he does that for 20 years of his life. You get to know these people. And the same thing in our business. We're working with people in and out, and we all have a common thread. You and I, and everyone riding in the bus. There is this little common thing going on between us all, that why we're here in the first place.
Was it a challenge? We had such a unique tour because you had kids, adults, crew, teachers, little people. There was a little bit, or a lot of it, of everything going on there. Was that a different kind of experience for you?
That was a little bit of a different experience, and the things that had to be done. A lot of tours, there are no children on tours. Right. And then when they're on a tour, you've got to educate them. You got lots of rules you have to follow. So it was a unique logistically speaking, it was a little bit different pattern perhaps to cover than, we're getting up and going to the museum, to perhaps going to a local museum with the kids so they could learn something versus taking the rock band to the gentleman's club after hours.
Right. Yes, it's a completely different experience.
It's different, but kind of the same. So,
I guess for a drive, I guess that is true. Because you did several of the field trips for the kids.
Yes. So I think we went to a museum in Indianapolis one day. There's a big children's museum over there in Indy, and I think we went to that one day. And I'm not sure where I made a list of some of the towns that we were in together: Kansas City and Indianapolis, St. Louis and Omaha and Des Moines. And of course we mentioned the Milwaukee show earlier. We were there for a few days in Milwaukee and had the New Year's Eve celebration there. But for Indianapolis, I do remember an outing in Indianapolis. We were there at that convention center or something, or not convention center, but that domed building or something. Wasn't it the Air Dome Convention Center or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's interesting. We did a lot of different venues, from arenas to convention centers. It's funny. I'm trying to think where we play, but you said Omaha. That really trickled into my head because I remember it snowing there.
Yes.
And I remember some people had never seen snow before.
That's right.
We had some people on our tour that had never seen snow before. And I remember in Omaha, I was born in Washington, D.C., so I lived with snow as a kid. But I remember some people looking, they were so fascinated. They were having a snowball fight because they'd never seen snow before.
Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome.
I got away from that snow thing. That's why I moved to Florida. I had enough of it.
And I'm curious about the challenges, as we're talking about this, of your job. I'm presuming cities with snow has got to be something you've obviously got to be be very aware, especially in these
You know,
large buses you're traveling with.
we may be in one city, we may have good weather in one city and the show comes off well, and then the next city the show's going to have good weather, but in between there's a snowstorm and a blizzard, and you've got to get through it because the show, as you said earlier, the show must go on, and I carry that spirit with me, and we're going to try and get through safely as possible, as long as the road is open. Myself and a lot of drivers have that attitude that we're going to get you there. The folks at the other end, they don't care about the snowstorm in between. They've bought the tickets, they've held them for 90 days or longer. And with the anticipation building up this much every day until finally it's over their head in anticipation. And man, you go, oh, sorry, they couldn't make it. It snowed. Wrong. So, there are always weather challenges. The weather is a big factor in the job, learning to understand the weather and what it's going to do, hopefully what you think it's going to do, so you can get through, because driving through weather is a big factor. So you have to be aware.
Are you able to adjust your routes if you know something's going to be happening in a city?
A little bit. It depends on the schedule of the show. If our overnight, maybe we have an overnight run into the next town and we have a day off into the next town, and then we would look at, okay, maybe we can alter our route here so it's we go around this storm a little bit. So we can add an hour or two to our trip and it'd be a little safer. But, sometimes you can't always do that. You just got to go. You just have to go through.
Is there an average? Because I remember some of our drives were long.
Yes.
Is it, I don't know if you were with us. We did Houston to LA.
Yes.
I mean, that was something. And for us, we've got the lounge and all those comforts. How long of a drive do you usually do, or can you do, before you've got to take a break?
Years ago, the entertainment tour bus industry was not governed by the government. You as an entertainer could hire your coach privately and go and say, I want to go here and I want to go there. And then your driver would act accordingly, could drive as far as he felt safe to drive. Eventually the government got involved and has packaged us in with the semi-truck drivers. And now we have to keep log books. So we're pretty limited to about 600 miles of driving max. I look at it a little differently in respect to what an entertainer tour bus driver does versus what a semi-truck driver does, who drives 10 hours straight and then pulls over on the side of the road, sleeps in his bunk for 10 hours, and then gets up and works another 10 hours. Whereas generally, once I get you to Chicago, where you are going to perform, I go to a hotel, because you have to set it up, you have to rehearse it, and open the doors and put on the show, and all this takes hours and hours of time. And this is time that I get for myself to sleep and to eat and bathe and hot shower and come to work ready to work, just like you would on an 8 to 5 job in the morning when you get ready, when you're headed off to your drive time in the morning. So it's a little different in that respect.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. People probably didn't understand that you all do that. You prepare for the drive. So you go and you get the sleep and the eat, as you're saying. You do all those things so that you can drive through the night. And as you mentioned, the artist is completely comfortable with you, because you guys are professional drivers.
I can sleep in a hotel, wake up, order room service, take a hot shower, and then I can go actually sit in my seat where I do my job for 12 to 15 hours straight. Of course, a couple of stops along the way for bathroom breaks or to get fuel, those kind of things. But I can get back and work. I can work an honest 15-hour shift and then check into a hotel and once again have a hot shower and go get between clean sheets and sleep while you do your job,
Right.
while you do your portion of the job. So it's so, but once again, we were grouped into the trucking industry's form of transportation rules. And so we have to follow those. So now overall, that's added more cost to the overall thing. Now, your drive, you mentioned a drive from Houston to Los Angeles. That can no longer be done by one person anymore. And now it has to be done by two people who rotate. So.
Well, and when we did that, we did make stops and we did take break. It wasn't a straight through, obviously. We stopped for full meals, and it's not a hammer through kind of thing. But
some bands used to hammer through. That's how you make your money. You go hammer through it. In the end, this is a lot of fun for people, but in the end, it's a numbers game. And if the numbers don't match up, and in order to make them match up, we have to hustle sometimes.
Right.
Double hustle.
Right. Well, we all did it because, for us, I remember I can't remember the city, but we did 3 shows on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I think we only did that once, but it's a lot. It's a lot kind of thing, and it's exactly what you're talking about. There's a whole thing when it comes. I mean, it is a business. Obviously, it's a business of making people happy, but it is a business, and so you do some of those things and see what works. And I think it's amazing about this industry is no one complains. I mean, you do what you have to do, whether it's long drives or a third show or watching the crew. I gained such a respect for what the crew does, putting up a show, taking it down, keeping it running. We laugh about it. They knew that show so well, they'd be looking at us for key. They knew every aspect of it.
I think Barney had 10 to 12 semi trucks full of gear.
It was a lot. I don't remember how many. Yeah, I don't remember how many it was, but it was a lot. I don't think people realize for a kids show, we had a big old tree house and all kinds of things that we were traveling with.
Sure. Half the stage was there.
Right. Well, and obviously we were bringing, costumes and wardrobes, right? And even the classroom for the kid, books and all kinds of things.
Yes. So on the Barney show, they carry a classroom. On some of the rock shows, they carry a bar. So I would say carry a bar, but carry a lounge with the show. But everyone works their butts off, and it's with the end results being happiness. So.
Well, it's funny you say that about the bar. I had the honor, the privilege. I got to go backstage with the Rolling Stones one time from our friend Jake Berry, and it was the Voodoo Lounge, and Jake just said, they may be back there, just treat them like everyone else. Don't just don't be a big fan, but just treat them normal.
Right.
And it's exactly what you're talking about, is that they're on the road just as much, and they had a pool table back there and all kinds of things. And it was their way to unwind before, basically their green room before they went on stage. And the band was there, and we went and had food, and it was one of the most relaxed environments I've ever seen.
Right. So you enjoyed that? I was on that tour, the Voodoo Lounge tour as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that I realized that.
I was the second lighting bus on Jake Berry's lighting crew.
Oh, okay.
And I think there were 4 lighting buses. And there were like close to 20 buses on that tour. So
the size of some of these tours is unbelievable.
It is. The Production Alliance folks, which is Jake Berry's company, Production Alliance is what was handling the Barney tour, and they are. I mean, I've worked with many of their people through the years, and they are the top notch. They are the best of what's around. That's for sure.
Well, that was an amazing experience. I've told these amazing stories, the things that we got to do. I remember we got to go see Tina Turner at one point. He had told the bus drivers to take us, and we had no idea. And we show up, and he's standing there with a bunch of tickets, and we got the chance to go backstage and go see shows like that. And so those are some of the coolest experiences you get to do.
Right there.
So yes, yes, and it's amazing the the work life balance on on the road, from these cool things you get to do, from these amazing touching things you get to do, like going to hospitals, and then of course
Yeah.
doing that show every day.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's a wonderful life.
Well, I want to talk about here that you wrote a book.
I did. I put together some of the stories of some things that have happened to me as I've traveled through the years with different entertainers. It's called Tales of the Trails of a Rock and Roll Bus Driver,
And you can find it on Amazon.
you can get it on Amazon or at my website is Cowboy Buddha Publishing Company at cowbudpub.com.
I love it, and we'll put the link in as well.
Thank you very much. And, I put together, I think I even have a little story in there of something that happened to Barney. I don't have it in front of me at this moment, but, it was just a collection of stories, lots of, I've toured with more than 100 different entertainment acts through the years and done hundreds and hundreds of tours. And so, and there are unique things that have happened as I traveled along, everything from seeing, unique things, how the crowd might act or something like that, to things I've seen on the road. But just kind of a little version of what we do from where I sit is kind of how I put it. I sit behind the wheel. So from where I sit and seeing things that are happening in the entertainment world from our point of view, so to speak. But it's been out a few years. I had some help getting it organized, and then once I wrote the book, I self-published and then formed a publishing company, and I've been able to publish up to this time 7 other authors in poetry books, as well as a couple of fiction works. One is a fiction book called Evil Thingies by a guitar player from an old rock and roll band called Black Oak, Arkansas. And Ricky Reynolds was the guitar one of the original guitar players from they were a 70s rock and roll band, and he wrote a fictional story called Evil Thingies, and I was lucky enough to talk him into allowing me to publish it for him. And one of the unique things about the story is that, you and I go out on tour, just like Ricky did back in the 70s. And when he would come back, he had a story in his head that when he put his children to bed, he would relate this story to them. And it became a fantasy, and he kept expanding it until eventually, it's a 350-page book, and it's really a unique story that started from him telling his children stories when he came home from the road of touring, so he could spend special time with his kids. So very honored to be able to publish him. And then that's just kind of our side game here. We like to play with words.
I love it. I love it. It's interesting you saying that. When Barney was on tour, and obviously when you were touring at the beginning days, we didn't really have cell phones. And,
no.
And if we did, we didn't have all the capabilities that we have. We absolutely didn't with Barney. And so you were gone. Right. When you got on that bus and you went, you were gone.
You left your family behind.
Right. You make a phone call, once every couple of weeks, or maybe even once a week to family, but they couldn't keep up with you. You were, there was no social media. There was none of those things.
You know, in my case, as a driver, you would be in a hotel, and so I was able to set up a daily call to talk to my children and to offer them encouragement in school and talk to them about some of the main events in their life. But you're right, there were no cell phones at that time, so we were tied to scheduling our calls. Okay, Dad's going to call around 8 o'clock tonight when he wakes up to go to work. So. You know, it was those kind of things, and so yeah, it was a different world back then compared to what we're faced with now with with the luck we have with technology now. So just
Absolutely, because when you said you were gone, like people think about today, and they're like, "What do you mean you were gone?" I mean, I was gone. No one knew what I was.
300 days a year. Right. 300 days a year back in the day when I was a younger man. I averaged 300 days a year working out on the road. So yeah, you too.
Yeah, sure. we were gone either August or September until probably April or May.
Yep.
And so we had the summer off, but I was working full time with Barney, so I would go and do all kinds of promotional stuff during the summer. I was in Dallas, but I didn't have I'd stay at my parents' house because I got rid of my apartment. Everything was in storage.
Sure.
My parents had my car.
Sure, I understand exactly what you mean. Spending the time, a lot of times that the time is being spent off, we're planning for the next tour, was part of it as well. So very little time off. So it's a tough job if you're gonna work in this business, but there's a lot of rewards. There's a lot of rewards.
Well, there is, and I think that's what you're talking about. Why the relationships are so deep. Of all the year, we're talking about 1996. I don't even believe it was that long ago, but it doesn't feel that long ago. Talking to you feels like it was, yesterday. And I think you really grow those relationships and those friendships, and you've experienced things that a lot of people don't get to experience.
Sure, the people are there. Just what you were talking about with Harold and Mo Hell and Rhonda and Barry and Creech, all of the guys, and we still know, all of us guys still know each other, years later. We're just, it's neat. It's a neat thing the way we're all tied up. That's for sure. So
can you think from the book some favorite stories?
I have, I told some stories about, oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot here.
That's okay. That's okay. There's no pressure here.
Right. No pressure here. I mentioned, I think I said I had a little story about the Barney, but I don't have a copy of my book handy to refresh my mind from it, dadgummit. I wrote about dealing with English people come over from Europe with a band, for instance, Siouxsie and the Banshees. I don't know if you're familiar with Siouxsie and the Banshees. But they came over, and on their first 2 or 3 American tours, I was lucky enough to be on their team and be a driver with them. And they had some unique tattooed up, ring wearing, folks that were kind of ahead of that craze, hadn't quite hit America yet. So you're like, whoa, dude, Way, look at that. But, I had a lot of unique experiences, and I wrote about a few of them. I just don't know what I'm talking about right now. I just don't have them off the top of my head right now. Ones that I could honestly share here on the Purple Road, I'll say that.
But you've traveled you're allowed, a little room here because you've been traveling as much as you have.
Sure.
For us.
Let me tell you about a girl who put I was driving one day down the interstate, and the girl saw an artist sitting in the jump seat of the bus where you used to sit. Mm-hmm. And so they tried to get our attention. So I gave them my phone. I wrote my phone number on a piece of paper and held it up in the window, and then they called me, and I let them talk to this entertainer. And then I learned a few months later that one of the girls had tattooed my phone number around her wrist, thinking that it was the entertainer's phone number. So just funny, unique stories like that we're having. You know, she notified me later on, and then she told me she called the number later on. You know, to talk to the entertainer on the sly, and I ended up answering the phone, of course, and then it took me quite some time to convince her that she was not talking to the entertainer. So.
I
And
love it.
then that's when she said, "Well, I've tattooed your phone number on my wrist," and she sent me a picture of it. So it's pretty. One of the unique things about it was she was a soldier in the army,
Oh wow.
and when I met her, she was at a show, and then she was going back to her base, and her squad was going to Afghanistan. And that was a few years back, and she did go to Afghanistan. Served our country, and then she came back home, and that's when she called me, and I was so touched and happy that she made it back from the war. So but she did make it back with my telephone number tattooed around her wrist. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's what we're talking about, though, right? You make these relationships from these
Yes.
crazy stories, these things that happen.
Right. So it was, you know, and I've talked to her a couple times since, and actually I've seen her at a couple of shows since as well. So, you know, like I said, the deepest thing for me about it was that this child came back from the war. So
Yep, that's awesome. I know you can talk about this because I've seen it on the road. You meet these amazing people, these Dave Matthews and things of that nature. But what you realize when you work with them is just what normal, good people they are.
Sure. Everyone, underneath the Barney, underneath the Barney uniform, we got good people. So you bet.
Yeah, and you end up having these deep conversations with the experiences that come. I don't know what it is about those buses that bring out these deep conversations.
Like the Willie Nelson song or a Bob Seger song on a long, lonesome highway or something. You just start kind of shaking back and forth, and the wind blowing, and start getting nostalgic, I guess, right?
Absolutely. I know this is an impossible question.
After a few beers.
You're right, yeah. I know this is an impossible question, so I'll leave this a little open, but to ask you what your favorite city is would be impossible. But do you have some favorite places you like to go that you get excited about?
I do have a favorite city, and it's called New Orleans, Louisiana. I love the weather. I love the food. I love the people. And I just love to go there and visit. Everyone is, there's just an atmosphere in and about New Orleans. But I love visiting all the cities in America. New York City is wonderful to visit as much as Cody, Wyoming. You know, there's unique things and people and sights you're going to see in every one of them and every place you visit. And I'm always excited. Probably, but New Orleans is definitely right at the top of my list of favorite places to visit.
Isn't that interesting? Because I'm a big New Orleans fan. I'm a Texas boy, as you can see.
Right.
But I love New Orleans. I remember when we went the first time, most of the cast had never been there before.
Mm-hmm.
But I had been there several times, and so I was kind of the tour guide. And where do you start? With the history and the food and the music and all, obviously Bourbon Street, but there's so much there. It's so
much
amazing.
more besides that.
Right.
There's so much more besides that. The history there is incredible.
Oh, you feel it just getting out of the bus.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite restaurant when you go there?
Oh, I don't think I do really have a favorite restaurant. I mean, I like to go around and get a poor boy at the at Mom's or what's it called? There's a place I know to go to, but I don't really have a favorite restaurant per se. I'm a moody person. Today I may feel like this, and tomorrow I may feel like that. So that tomorrow's restaurant may be different from today's.
Isn't it funny though you say that too? Because There are places I couldn't tell you the name, but you could drop me in that city and I could go right there.
I can go right there. Exactly. So,
Hey,
but
we got to talk about that shirt you're wearing.
you know, I've got a friend named Brian Calhoun. Brian is he's a good friend because he's a guitar manufacturer. He started a little company called Rockbridge Guitars, and Rockbridge now is being played by some of the biggest musicians in the business. He's just a little boutique guitar company, but he also invented this game called Chick-a-Pig. And it's such an honor to know him. Brian he's such a smart man that he invented the game, and he put it out on the where they raise some money. What's that thing called that they raise money on for businesses? But he had a good investment in from his deal, and then now you can find Chick-a-Pig in Targets and Walmarts and get them offline, get them online, and all that. It's a really neat game. He's won awards with it and everything. So just honored to know Brian Calhoun and his little company Chick-a-Pig and Rockbridge Guitars. He's a good guy. So
I
thanks
love
for letting
this.
me speak about it.
I love this, from games to guitars and books and all the things
Yeah, it's all these side things.
You know.
Yeah, but you can it's neat. I knew him before the game came out, and so and were you involved with the Barney folks before they actually got out? You guys rehearsed for a year before you ever went out on tour.
I was with Barney back in '91, before it was actually on national TV.
Yes.
So I was one of the first people, if not the first person on the cast that was knowing he was going on tour. And of course, I didn't understand. I was 26. I didn't know what being on tour was. I had no clue. I just thought we were going to city to city. I had no clue.
But see how from that part to see how it grew and how big it became and all of that, and to kind of see it on the ground floor. Same thing with me and Brian, seeing Brian start the game, dream it up. He's talking about it one day, and the next day he's made little cardboard pieces, and then eventually now he's got a game on a shelf in a in a giant thrift store. So it's amazing to see how all that stuff unfolds like that, from Barney to wherever, to Chick-a-Pig. So.
To Chick-a-Pig. Well, but it is true. That's how it kind of happens, right? If you build something that you believe in and that is authentic, I think that's the thing. We use that term a lot on here. Authenticity. Instead of trying to create something, thinking of the audience, you're doing something that you think is a great idea and it means something to you. And that's usually where that success comes from. Yeah.
So it's neat. So Brian's a good guy and a good friend. So I hope people check out his game. So
we'll put his link on there too, and send people to check out Chick-a-Pig and check out your book. And I can't thank you enough, Jerry. Just sitting and talking to you again just puts a huge smile on my face. And seeing you it's just awesome.
It's awesome to see you, Carey. I hope we get together and work again someday in the future. You never know.
Well, I know, absolutely. And I'll have to come see you when you get back out on the road. Hopefully you all. So many friends in that industry, and it breaks my heart that you all are. You're ready to go. And can't get out there.
We'll be out soon. I know we will. Things are going to get better.
They are. They absolutely are. Well, thanks for coming on, Jerry.
Thank you, Carey.
Well, thank you so much for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.